Bismillah wassalat wassalam ala Rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we are going to start with the first lesson of our writing course in 015, and the first lesson is talking about writing sentences using there is not, there are not. To start with, we are going to have a look at the objectives of lesson 1 and part 1, and the objectives of lesson 1, which means أهداف الدرس الأول هي. We will let the student know what the meaning of there is or there are is. سنطلع الطالب على معنى there is أو there are, which means هناك أو ثمة. The next objective, الهدف الثاني, is to tell the students how to write grammatically correct sentences starting with there is or there are. كيف نعلم الطالب كيف يتمكن من صياغة جمل صحيحة قواعديا باستخدام there is أو there are. والهدف الأخير, and the third objective, is to let students know how to write affirmative, which means الجمل المثبتة, and negative sentences والجمل المنفية باستخدام starting with there is and there are. We know that there is or there are is a commonly used construction in English. هي عبارة عن تركيب يستخدم بشكل شائع في اللغة الإنجليزية، ودائما ما نستخدم دائما there is مع الأسماء المفردة singular، بينما نستخدم there are مع الأسماء المجموعة، أسماء الجمع. Okay, and in Arabic we say that there is or there are has the meaning of هناك أو ثمة. Let's start talking about how we can refer to these pictures. كيف يمكن أن نشير إلى هذه الصور ونعبر عن هذه الصور باستخدام there is or there are. We will notice that we have a picture with one table. So this is just one table. So it is a singular noun. So to refer to it, we say there is a table. So we used there. There, by the way, is used with all nouns, whether singular or plural. There تستخدم مع كل الأسماء سواء كانت مفردة أم جمع. But what distinguishes the plural from singular is the use of the verb after there. ولكن ما يميز استخدام الأسماء المفردة عن الأسماء الجمع هو استخدام الفعل الذي يلي كلمة there. عندما يكون مفردا, as the case here, كما في هذه الحالة singular, we refer to it by using is, because it is just one table. Okay? The second one, as you can see here, we have two cars and not one. In English we do not have dual pronouns. في اللغة الإنجليزية ليس هناك ما نطلق عليه باللغة العربية ضمائر التثنية أو ما يشار إلى المثنى. We do not have that in English. Everything which is more than one is considered to be plural in English. كل ما زاد عن واحد في اللغة الإنجليزية يعتبر جمعا. So we will start to refer. سنبدأ بالإشارة إلى هذه الصور. We say there, and we said that there is used with all nouns. كما أسلفنا نستخدم there مع كل الأسماء. But because we have two cars, we do not have one, so we have a plural noun. إذا عندنا اسم جمع, so we say there are 2 cars. Okay, so when we have a plural noun we use are and then we mention what these things are. The last picture, as you can see, we have also 3 cats, which is plural as well, اسم جمع أيضا. So we start with there are, we use are because we are talking about plural, 3 cats. Okay, now we will have another exercise. We will try to be selective and pick up a few items in this room. سنختار بعض الأشياء الموجودة في هذه الغرفة and we will refer to them. Let's start, for example, with we have just one train, right? So this is singular, right? So we say there is, because it is singular, مفرد, there is one toy train. قطار لعب, toy train. Now we have 3 drawers, عندنا 3 دروج, right? So they are plural. So we say there are 3 drawers. Again, we have just one shelf. لدينا رف واحد في الغرفة. So we say there is one shelf because it is singular, right? Also we have هناك 4 ألواح من الزجاج, 1 2 3 4, right? So we use a plural. We say there are 4 panes of glass. Okay, again we have just one bed, سرير واحد. We use there is one bed because we just have one bed. هناك سرير واحد فقط. Also we are going to talk about the books that we have here. We have many books, as you can see. في عن أكثر من كتاب. So we say there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. There are 7 books. Okay, also we have one carpet, سجادة واحدة. There is one carpet. I hope that this is clear and I hope you've benefited from this lesson. Thank you very much for your attention and we will meet you soon. Thank you very much. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we're going to explain the second part of the first lesson, which focuses on question making in present simple tense. سنتحدث اليوم أعزائي الطلبة عن صياغة السؤال في زمن الحاضر البسيط. As usual, we start with the objectives of this lesson. كما هي العادة جرت، فإننا نبدأ بالتعريف عن أهداف هذا الدرس. The first objective, الهدف الأول, is finding the difference between yes/no questions and WH questions in meaning. إيجاد الفرق بين الأسئلة التي تبدأ بأدوات استفهام تبدأ ب WH والأسئلة التي تتطلب إجابة بنعم أو لا من ناحية المعنى. The second objective is الهدف الثاني is how to write grammatically correct questions كيفية صياغة أسئلة بشكل صحيح قواعديا. And the third and last objective is how to provide short answers to yes/no questions كيف تجيب عن أسئلة الإيجاب والنفي بإجابة قصيرة. To start with, we will provide a definition for what a yes/no question is. سنبدأ بتعريف ما هو سؤال الإيجاب والنفي. It is a question that requires a yes/no answer. إذن هذا النوع من الأسئلة هو الأسئلة التي تتطلب إجابة بنعم أو لا. مثال ذلك, an example is, does Ali work as a doctor? هل يعمل علي كطبيب? If you want to answer this question, you only can provide an answer to this question in one of two ways only. للإجابة عن هكذا سؤال هناك إحدى طريقتين الإجابة عن هذا السؤال فقط. Either say yes he does, إما أن تقول yes he does كإجابة عن هذا السؤال, or you say no he doesn't. And this is what is meant by a yes/no question. هذا المقصود ب yes/no question. لاحظ السؤال يتطلب إجابة إما بنعم أو لا حصرا. ليست هناك أي نوع من المعلومات التي يمكن أن تقدمها في سؤال من هذا النوع. The rule says, القاعدة في صياغة هذا النوع من الأسئلة هي كالتالي. We have an auxiliary verb, or what we call sometimes helping verb, الفعل المساعد, plus the subject. إذا نبدأ دائما بالفعل المساعد followed by the subject متبوعا بالفاعل, then the verb الفعل الرئيسي في الجملة, ويجب أن يكون في الصورة الأولى without any inflections or additions, دون أي إضافات مضافة على الفعل. An example for that, مثال على ذلك, do they go to school on a Friday? So let's see if this rule applies to this question. لنرى إن كانت هذه القاعدة تنطبق على هذا السؤال الذي أمامنا. سنجد first of all we have the auxiliary verb which is do, we have the subject they, we have the verb is go, and notice that we do not have any additions. لاحظوا معنا أي إضافات على الفعل. It is in the base form في الشكل الرئيسي. And then you have the complement of the sentence or the question, ومن ثم عندك تكملة هذا السؤال. Of course we used do because we are talking about plural subject. استخدمنا do بسبب وجود فاعل جمع. لو كان الفاعل مفرد like he, she, it, then we have to use does. Look at the answer. Yes, they do. This is an affirmative sentence or affirmative short answer. هذا عبارة عن إجابة قصيرة بالإثبات. So we say yes and we use the same subject. نستخدم نفس الفاعل and we use the same auxiliary verb. ونستخدم نفس الفعل المساعد. In case it is negative, في حال كانت الإجابة بالنفي, you start with no, comma, they as the subject, الفاعل, and do as the auxiliary verb, but it is not because we have no. Alright? Now let's form a question asking about the picture that is in front of us. الآن خلونا نضع سؤال للاستفسار عما يفعل هذا الرجل. Now is he singular or plural? Is the subject singular or plural? هل هذا الفاعل جمع or مفرد? We will see that it is a male person, so it is singular. سنجد أنه فاعل مفرد مذكر, ولذلك فهو مفرد. and we will start with does as the auxiliary verb, and according to the rule we have to give the subject. So does he, okay, what is he doing? For example, let's ask, does he swim? And question mark. So what do you think? Does he swim? Of course no, he doesn't. Okay, let's see the second picture. We find a person who is riding a horse. Let's form a question. The same thing, we have a singular subject, so we start with does he ride a horse? Of course, yes, he does. Okay, notice with me that the verb that is used is verb 1, okay, and we all the time have what we call subject verb agreement. دائما عندنا ما نطلق عليه التوافق العددي بين الفاعل والفعل. So if we have here, for example, plural, we say do they, but because we have just singular, we say does he. Let's move to the second part, or the second category of questions, which is a WH question, and we start by providing the definition. ونبدأ بتقديم وعرض التعريف. It is a question that starts with a WH word. إذن هو نوع من الأسئلة الذي يبدأ بأداة استفهام وليس بفعل مساعد, and requires information as an answer. ويتطلب الإجابة بتقديم معلومات, ولا يمكن الإجابة عن هذا النوع من الأسئلة بنعم أو لا. Let's find this example. When does Ali wake up in the morning? Notice with me that we have the WH word, which is when. Okay? When does Ali wake up in the morning? And here we have some of the WH words. بعض أدوات الاستفهام. لاحظوا, notice that they all start with WH. That's why we call them WH question. Okay? The rule, القاعدة, that we use to form such type of questions, القاعدة التي نستخدمها لصياغة هذا النوع من الأسئلة, is the same as we had previously. هي نفس القاعدة التي كنا قد مررنا بها سابقا في هذا الدرس, but we start here with the WH word, not the auxiliary. So the only difference, الاختلاف الوحيد, is that we start with a WH word and then we have the same order of elements. ومن ثم عندنا نفس الترتيب للعناصر من ناحية الفعل المساعد والفاعل والفعل في الشكل الأول. What do students wear in Britain? This is an example, and we see that this is the WH word, and this is the auxiliary, الفعل المساعد, this is the subject, and this is the verb. Notice that the verb is in the first form, في الشكل الأول أو في التصريف الأول, without any inflections, دون أي إضافات على الفعل. And notice that we have the subject verb agreement, التوافق العددي بين الفاعل والفعل, because we have students, which is plural, we used do. But in case we had a student, then we should have used does. في حال كان عندنا مفرد طالب واحد, a student, then we should have used does. Okay? Let's try to place these words in the right order to form a grammatically correct question. الآن سنحاول ترتيب هذه الكلمات للحصول على سؤال صحيح. Okay? First we start with the WH word. نبدأ أولا ب طبقا للقاعدة التي مررنا بها آنفا. We start with the WH word بأداة الاستفهام, which is when. And then we start, and then we have the auxiliary verb, which is does. And then we have the subject, الفاعل, which is that semester. And the last element is the verb in its first form or in its base form. وأخيرا عنا الفعل في الشكل الأول, which is start. متى يبدأ الفصل الدراسي. Let's have another example. Come back, the boys, why late do. We start with the WH word, which is why, and then we need the auxiliary verb, which is do. When do the boys as the subject. Why do the boys come back is the verb. And we have late as an adverb of time كظرف زمان. Okay, hope you've all benefited from this. Thank you very much for your careful listening. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we are moving to lesson 1 part 3, which is going to talk about how to write a negative sentence, or how to make sentences negative. We start with the objectives. We have two objectives of this lesson. The number one is to distinguish between affirmative and negative sentences, التمييز بين الجمل المثبتة والمنفية. And the second objective is when to use the negative particle not immediately and when to use an auxiliary first. Now we have two sentences which are obviously wrong in meaning. لدينا الآن جملتان غير صحيحتان من ناحية المعنى. So we need to make them negative first and then we make them true. The first one is Kuwait is on the Mediterranean Sea. تقع الكويت على البحر الأبيض المتوسط. Of course, this is a wrong sentence and we want to make it negative. So we say Kuwait is not, and we continue, is not on the Mediterranean Sea. Rather, it is on the Arabian Gulf. بل تقع على الخليج العربي. Now, the second sentence, Saudi Arabia is smaller than Oman. Of course, also this is a wrong sentence in meaning and we want to make it negative. So we say Saudi Arabia also is not smaller, and we continue. What we notice here is that whenever we have the auxiliary verb or the verb to be as the main verb of the sentence, كلما صادفنا الفعل فعل الكون الذي يتمثل ب is are في الزمن الحاضر كفعل رئيسي في الجملة, we only add not to the auxiliary verb which is the main verb in this sentence. Okay, so whenever we have the verb to be as the main verb of the sentence, we only use not after the verb. Okay, now let's move to something else. The same thing, we have here sentences but they do not have verb to be as the main verb. We have different types of verbs. في هذه الجمل نستعرض أنواع مختلفة من الأفعال مغايرة لما ورد في الشريحة السابقة التي كانت عبارة عن أفعال الكون كأفعال رئيسية في الجملة. في هذه الشريحة لدينا أفعال مختلفة نطلق عليها باللغة الإنجليزية lexical verbs. For example, in the first sentence we have start. We do not have verb to be like is, are. In the second one we have uses, and in the last one we have holds. In this case we make them negative by using an auxiliary verb. For example, pupils, التلاميذ, in Saudi Arabia. Because we have here a plural, الاسم جمع, we use an auxiliary, نستخدم فعلا مساعدا يتوافق عدديا مع الفاعل في الجمع. So we say do and then we use not. Do not start, etc. Okay, so we used do, not does, because we have plural subject. إذا استخدامنا ل do في النفي كفعل مساعد قبل not يعود إلى وجود فاعل في أو اسم جمع. Let's see the second example. في المثال الثاني we have a singular subject, الفاعل مفرد. So we will see how we are going to make it negative differently. Saudi Arabia, because it is singular لأنه عبارة عن الفاعل مفرد, we use does not, and we change the verb which has already taken S into its base form. نعيد الفعل دون أي إضافات إلى شكله الرئيسي. We say does not use إلى آخر الجملة. So we used does not because we have a singular noun. The last sentence, Abha holds its summer festival once every 4 years. Of course this is not true, so we say Abha, it is singular of course, مفرد, لذلك سنستخدم does not hold without any additions, etc. Okay, so we all the time have subject verb agreement. دائما لدينا توافق عددي بين الفاعل والفعل. If it is singular, if the subject is singular, we use does. If the subject is a plural, we use do. Thank you very much for your careful listening. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulullah. Hello everyone. Today we are going to wrap up the first lesson, which is part 4, and it talks about writing sentences on a specific topic. اليوم سنختتم هذه الوحدة بالتكلم عن كيف تكتب جملة عن موضوع ما أو التعبير عن شيء ما أمامك. We start with objectives as usual. نبدأ بالأهداف. First we will learn what the constituents, basic parts of a declarative sentence are. سنتعلم في البداية ما هي العناصر الأساسية للجملة في اللغة الإنجليزية. And two, how to put the sentence elements in the right order. كيف ترتب هذه العناصر بالشكل الصحيح في الجملة لصياغة جملة صحيحة قواعديا. And the last one is how to write correct sentences on a certain topic. كيف تكتب جمل صحيحة قواعديا عن موضوع ما. We start with some facts, بعض الحقائق. Number one, all statements in English, كل الجمل في اللغة الإنجليزية must. لاحظ الوجوب في الذي عبرنا عنه باستخدام كلمة must. يجب وعلى كافة الجمل في اللغة الإنجليزية أن تبدأ they must start with a noun or pronoun. يجب أن تبدأ باسم أو ضمير which we refer to it grammatically as the subject, وهي ما نعبر عنه في اللغة الإنجليزية والقواعد على أنه الفاعل. Next, then the verb of the sentence comes in agreement with the subject. So after the subject, which is a noun or a pronoun, إذا بعد الفاعل الذي قد يأخذ شكل اسم أو ضمير, we have the verb, لدينا الفعل, والذي يكون دائما as we mentioned earlier, كما تحدثنا آنفا, يجب أن يكون في حالة توافق عددي مع الفاعل. And then we have the object. بعد ذلك لدينا المفعول به, طبعا في حال كان الفعل متعديا, in case the verb is a transitive verb. But if the verb is an intransitive verb, we do not have any object. ولكن في حال كان الفعل لازما لا يكون هناك مفعولا به. Look at this example. فلننظر إلى هذا المثال. The students study English in grade 1. First we have the noun, the students, which is what we mentioned, it is the subject. And then we have the verb, study. And then we have the object, لدينا مفعولا به, because study is a transitive verb. الفعل يدرس هو فعلا متعديا, لذلك هو فعلا متعدٍ. إذن لدينا مفعول به which is English, so this is object. And then we have in grade 1 which is the complement, هذه تتمة الجملة. So this is an example about the order of the constituents in the sentence. هذا كان مثالا عن ترتيب العناصر في الجملة. So this is a reminder of that again. هذا عبارة عن تذكير بالقاعدة مرة أخرى. We have the subject, الفاعل, we have verb, الفعل, we have object, المفعول به, and we have the complement which is تتمة الجملة. This is an example now. Nabil is the subject, the verb is eats, object fish, and complement is for lunch on Fridays. Now notice with me the subject verb agreement, التوافق العددي بين الفاعل والفعل, because we have Nabil is singular, اسم مفرد, then we have S inflected or attached to the verb. لدينا الاس المضافة إلى الفعل للتعبير عن أن الفاعل مفردا. Now let's express and talk about what we can see in the picture. Number one, we have the subject. Okay, first we have to start with the subject. يجب أن نبدأ أولا بالفاعل. What can we see in the picture? ماذا يمكن أن نرى في هذه الصورة؟ We see someone, of course, obviously it is a man, رجل. So let's suppose he is Ali. فلنفترض أن اسمه علي. So we start with the subject, Ali. What is Ali doing in here? So Ali, this is the subject, and then we have the verb. Ali swims. لاحظوا التوافق العددي. Swims in the sea. And this is the complement of the sentence. وهذه تتمة الجملة. Another example, we have here a female person. So we start, let's suppose she is Sarah. Sarah reads a book. So notice that we have also an S here because this is singular as well. Okay, so this is all. Thank you very much for your careful listening, and see you in lesson 2. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we're going to start unit 2, lesson 2, which talks about how to make sentences negative in present continuous, or what they call sometimes progressive. Let's start to have a look at the objectives first. The first objective is to distinguish between affirmative and negative sentences. التمييز بين الجمل المثبتة والمنفية. Second, how to negate sentences in present continuous. كيفية نفي الجمل المصاغة بزمن الحاضر المستمر. And finally is when to use the present continuous tense. استخدام أو متى يستخدم هذا الزمن. Structure and use. We will start by talking about the structure and use. التركيب والاستخدام. تركيبة هذا الزمن هي عبارة عن is are plus verb 1 plus ing. Of course we use with I. We use is with singular nouns. نستخدم is مع الأسماء المفردة أو ما ينوب عن he, she, it. And we use are with plural nouns. نستخدم are مع أسماء الجمع أو ما ينوب عنها من we, you, wa, they. It is used to talk about an action that is going on at the same or at the time of speaking. استخدام هذا الزمن يستخدم للتحدث عن فعل ما يحدث لحظة التحدث. And if you have a look at the timeline, وإذا نظرنا إلى الخط الزمني الموجود أمامنا للتوضيح, we see that the action, الفعل أو الحدث, بدأ وما يزال مستمر لحظة الكلام وقد يمتد إلى المستقبل. Okay, now we will try to form sentences in the present continuous depending on the pictures that we will see now. سنصف الآن الصور التي أمامنا باستخدام هذا الزمن. Number 1, what can you see in the picture? Of course he is a man, but he, because we have he, then we have to use is. He is reading a novel. إنه يقرأ رواية. So we have is because we have he, and we have the verb read plus ing. Okay, now what can we see in this second picture? As you can see, we have many students listening to their teacher in the class. لدينا عدد من الطلاب يستمعون إلى شرح المدرس. So we say they are listening to the teacher. Okay? Now let's try to describe what each is doing in this sentence. As you can see, we have a family, and this family has some members. هناك بعض الأفراد من عائلة ما. They are sitting in the living room, and each one of them is doing something different. Let's start to describe some of them. Let's start, for example, with dad. What is dad doing? Okay, we say dad, of course, is, because it is singular, is pouring tea. يصب الشاي. Let's see, for example, baby Ben. We say baby Ben, what is he doing? Is playing. Okay? What is Yusil doing? Yusil is sleeping. Okay? And the last one we are going to talk about is Grandma Sue, الجدة Sue. Grandma Sue is drinking coffee. Okay? Thank you very much for your careful listening, and see you in part 2. Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Today we are going to talk about the second part of lesson 2, which is describing a town. كيف تصف مدينة أو بلدة. We'll start to have a look at the objectives. سنبدأ بالاطلاع على الأهداف. And the first objective is to know what a description of a town, city consists of. أن يتعرف الطالب على ما يتكون وصف مدينة ما. And to teach and instruct students to follow a funnel-like description of a town. كيف نعلم الطالب أن يتبع طريقة في الوصف نصفها بأنها على شكل القمع، لأنها تبدأ بالأفكار العامة وتنتهي بالأفكار الأكثر خصوصية. And how to give a fair description in sentences. وكيف تعطي وصفا مقبولا ووافيا في الجمل. A description usually consists of two types of information. عادة ما يتألف الوصف من نوعين من المعلومات. النوع الأول هو المعلومات العامة, which is general, and usually we start with general information at the beginning of the description. وعادة ما نبدأ بالمعلومات العامة في وصف في بداية الوصف، بينما ننتقل إلى النوع الثاني, which is specific or narrow description, after giving the general information. بعد إعطاء المعلومات العامة ننتقل عادة إلى المعلومات الخاصة أو الأقل عمومة. وفي ذلك, that's why we said it is like a funnel. فهي تشبه القمع. It starts with general, تبدأ بالمعلومات العامة، لاحظ، وننتقل إلى المعلومات الأكثر خصوصية. So the more down you get, كلما انتقلت إلى الأسفل كل ما باتت المعلومات أكثر خصوصية. This is called a funnel-like description. الوصف الأشبه بالقمع. Now we will see a description about the city of Taif in Saudi Arabia. Let's read and try to pinpoint, try to specify the general and the specific information in the description paragraph. سنقرأ الآن مقطعا يصف مدينة الطائف وسنحدد الجمل التي تعتبر معلومات عامة أو معلومات أكثر خصوصية. Taif is a small beautiful city in Saudi Arabia. Notice with me that the first sentence is always a general or belongs to general information. دائما تكون الجملة الأولى هي نوع من المعلومات العامة ولا يمكن أن تبدأ الوصف بجمل خاصة. For example, is a small beautiful city. This is a general type of information because we have a lot of small beautiful cities in Saudi Arabia. Also, there are about 400,000 people living there, and we have southwest, it is the location, موقعها. Also it is general, but the rest, which is it is one of the summer resorts in the kingdom, this is specific. All the other or the rest of the sentences give specific information. وسائر الجمل حتى نهاية الموضوع هي عبارة عن معلومات ليست عامة. Many tourists visit the city because of its beautiful mountain scenery and nice climate. Visitors also enjoy shopping there, and businessmen often go there for meetings. Now let's move to another description paragraph, and we will see also how it starts with general information and goes down with more specific information. This one is about Abha. It starts with general information, as we said. Abha is a beautiful city. So this is general information in the southwest of Saudi Arabia. All this sentence gives general information, and the rest they give specific information or narrow information. تعطي معلومات خاصة وأكثر تحديدا من الجملة الأولى. For example, it talks about it has about 370,000 people. كم نسمة في المدينة. It is 2,200 meters above sea level. ارتفاعها 2200 متر فوق سطح البحر. It has great mountains which visitors visit mainly in the summer. Visitors visit Al Far'a, Soda and Dalagan resorts, and many more. I invite all to visit it. So the same thing, we start with general information, and the remaining sentences talk about specific information about the city. I hope you've all derived benefit from this explanation. Thank you very much for your careful listening, and see you in next lesson. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we are going to cover Unit 3, which is made up of only one part, namely the use of much and many. As usual, we're going to start by looking at the objectives of this lesson. The first objective is to let students distinguish between count and non-count nouns. الهدف الأول من هذا الدرس هو تعريف الطالب بكيفية التمييز بين الأسماء المعدودة وغير المعدودة, because the way you distinguish between these nouns is your guide to the use of much and many. لأن التمييز بين الأسماء المعدودة وغير المعدودة هو الأساس لاستخدام much و many. The second objective, أما الهدف الثاني, is to teach students how to use the determiners much and many. ومن ثم سننتقل إلى مرحلة تعليم الطالب كيفية استخدام كل من المحددات much و many. And the last one is how to write sentences using much and many. وكيفية استخدام much و many في جمل مفيدة. First of all, we want to let the students know that nouns in English are divided into two main parts. الأسماء في اللغة الإنجليزية تقسم إلى قسمين. Number one is what we call countable nouns, الأسماء المعدودة, or sometimes we call it count nouns, and uncountable nouns, والأسماء غير المعدودة. Now, to make things as simple as I could, I will tell you that countable nouns are the nouns represented by chairs and pens. لتبسيط الأمور قدر المستطاع سنقول أن هذه الأسماء أي المعدودة يمكن تمثيلها بالأسماء مثل chairs و pens, while uncountable nouns are represented by such nouns as sugar and water. Now, what's the difference between countable and uncountable? We will see that countable nouns are those nouns that accept to be pluralized. هي الأسماء التي تقبل أن تجمع. That's why, if you notice, you will see that we have the plural marker. لذلك إذا لاحظتم معنا ستجدون أن هذه الأسماء يمكن أن تستخدم بصيغة الجمع. بينما whereas uncountable nouns cannot be used in plural forms. بينما الأسماء غير المعدودة لا يمكن أن تستخدم بصيغة الجمع. That's why you see that they have just one form and they are all the time dealt with as singular nouns. ولذلك يتم التعامل مع الأسماء غير المعدودة على أنها أسماء مفردة على الدوام. Okay? Now, because countable nouns can be pluralized وبسبب إمكانية جمع الأسماء المعدودة, we use many. Because many means more than one. لأن كلمة many تعني أكثر من واحد, وبالتالي يمكن استخدام many فقط only before countable nouns. However, with uncountable nouns we cannot use many, but we use much. So we say much sugar and much water. And both of them are used to refer to abundance. كلا الكلمتين أو المحددتين many و much تستخدمان للدلالة على الكثرة. كثير من الكراسي أو كثير من الأقلام، كذلك كثير من السكر أو كثير من الماء. But the use of many is that it is associated with countable nouns, whereas much is associated with the use of uncountable nouns. Alright, now let's move to talk about something else. Here I've tried to compile some of the most common countable and uncountable nouns. حاولت أن أبذل جهدي في جمع بعض أكثر الأسماء الشائعة غير المعدودة والمعدودة. To have a look on your left handed column على العمود الأيسر, we will see that we have countable nouns such as laptops, books, hands, pencils, beds, tables, and still many more. في أكثر من ذلك بكثير، لكن هذه بعض الأمثلة. And if you just have a look, you will see that all of them can be pluralized. ستجد أن كلها مجموعة ويمكن أن تجمع. Okay? So whenever you have many, you have a plural noun. حيثما صادفت كلمة many يجب أن تعقب باسم معدود وبصيغة الجمع. لذلك we can say many laptops, many books, many hands, many pencils, many beds, and many tables. However, on the right column وعلى النقيض تماما على في العمود الأيمن, we will see the most common uncountable nouns, and they are categorized as categories. تم تصنيفهم كمجموعات أو خانات. For example, number 1, materials, المواد. Some examples are cotton, القطن أو الحرير. We cannot say many cottons. We say only cotton or much cotton. Metals, المعادن, such as gold, silver, iron, etc. كالذهب والفضة والحديد وآخر أشياء أخرى. Liquids, السوائل, such as water, milk, juice. Gases, الغازات, air, smoke, steam. Food, such as cheese, butter, rice, etc. Now, what is really interesting, والأمر اللافت للنظر, what is really eye-catching is the fact that the last section of uncountable nouns, الجزء الأخير في هذه الخانة, تحتوي على أسماء غير معدودة. But what is strange about them is that we treat them all the time in Arabic as plural, and this is a mistake that mislead us to use plural verbs with them. وهذه عبارة عن خطأ شائع يجعلنا نظن أنها مجموعة باللغة الإنجليزية، ولكن رغم أنها تترجم ككلمات أو أسماء بصيغة الجمع باللغة العربية، إلا أنها تعامل معاملة المفرد باللغة الإنجليزية. such as مثل information معلومات, news أخبار, luggage أمتعة سفر, furniture أثاث, and we have other words. So we say information is, news is, luggage is, and furniture is, and we do not say are. Thus we say much information, much news, much luggage, and much furniture, and we do not say many. Now we are going to have an exercise using much or many. We saw animals at the zoo. What do you think? Are we going to use much or many in this blank? Now, to be able to solve such things, we just try to look at the noun that comes after the blank. في البداية ننظر الاسم اللاحق للفراغ. Is it countable or uncountable? هل هو اسم معدود أو غير معدود? We will see that it is countable noun because we have plural s. So we say we saw many animals. Second example, how oranges do you have? Again, we look at the noun, plural, so it is a countable noun, and we have to use then how many. Again, sentence number 3, there is not, we have sugar. Is sugar a countable or uncountable? It is uncountable, so we use much. Africa has, again, gold is part of metals, من المعادن, that we have just come across in previous slide. من المعادن والخانة التي مررنا بها في الشريحة السابقة, and it is uncountable, so we say Africa has much gold. And I have friends, it is countable, plural, so I have many friends. Okay? Now we are going to complete the following sentences based on the pictures. سنكمل الجمل التالية اعتمادا على الصور الظاهرة بجوارها. Number 1, as you can see, we have children here in the garden, but we have, do you think we have to say there are or there is. Actually, children is a countable noun, اسم معدود, so we say there are because they are plural, many because the children is countable. Okay, number 2, as you can see we have tea in the cup, so what do we say? There is or there are. Tea is uncountable, right? So we say there is much tea in the cup. More example, my mother uses butter to prepare cakes. As you can see, butter is uncountable, so we have to use much. Again, as you can see, we have many shelves with books on them, so I have many books, because as you can see, books is countable noun. Okay, hope you've benefited from this lesson. Thank you very much for your careful listening, and see you in lesson 4. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we're going to start unit 4 part 1, which mainly focuses on writing negative sentences in past simple tense. كتابة جمل ونفيها في زمن الحاضر في زمن الماضي البسيط. As usual, the objectives of this lesson are as follows. Number 1, to distinguish between affirmative and negative sentences. 2, know when to use past simple tense, استخدام الماضي البسيط, and how to negate sentences in the past simple tense, وكيفية نفي هذه الجمل في هذا الزمن. To start with, as usual, we are going to start talking about structure in use. سنبدأ بالتحدث عن التركيب والاستخدام هذا الزمن. We see that simple past tense is the use of the second form of verb, هو استخدام التصريف الثاني للفعل الذي عادة ما يكون ينتهي بالإيدي. طبعا إذا كان الفعل قياسيا, we call them regular verbs, مثل liked or walked. ستجد أن التصريف الثاني من هذا الفعل ينتهي بالإيدي، ولذلك يطلق عليه اسم الأفعال القياسية regular verbs. Or it might be irregular, أو أن يكون الفعل غير قياسي، أي أن التصريف الثاني لا ينتهي بالإيدي، مثل ate كالماضي من eat، كذلك wrote كصيغة الماضي من write. Okay. Now, it is used usually to talk about an activity or an action that happened in the past and has no relation to the present. يستخدم هذا الزمن للدلالة أو للدلالة عن حدث في الزمن الماضي وليس له علاقة إطلاقا بالزمن الحاضر. And we try to clarify this by the timeline. حاولنا توضيح ذلك بالخط الزمني الموجود أمامنا. You see the action happened here, حدث الفعل في هذه الفترة, which is in the past and finished before the present time, وانتهى قبل أن يدخل الزمن الحاضر. Okay? Now we are going to use the past simple tense in this short paragraph. and we will see when we have regular verbs and when we have irregular verbs. Okay, let's start. Last year, so we know that we are talking about something in the past, so we have to use present, we have to use past simple tense. Last year, you see, we have to use the proper form of go to England on holiday, so I went. And notice with me that go is one of the irregular verbs, أحد الأفعال غير القياسية. I visited is a regular verb because we have ed. I visited many interesting places such as the Waxy Museum. In the mornings, my friends and I walked, also regular verb. And I walked in the streets of London. It rained a lot, and now here we have irregular verb, عندنا فعل شاذ أو فعل غير قياسي. Some beautiful rainbows. We have irregular verb. We spent a lot of money on buying gifts for our families and friends. Okay, now next, if you want to make these sentences negative, we try to do the following. We use did as an auxiliary verb plus not, and we change the verb into its base form. إذن حيثما صادفنا فعلا في الزمن الماضي البسيط نستخدم did كفعل مساعد متبوعا ب not، ونقوم بإعادة الفعل إلى شكله الأصلي، إذ أنه كان كما تعلمون في الصورة الثانية أو التصريف الثاني. Let's look at these examples. We did not play tennis. You see, we used auxiliary verb did not, and we changed play into its base form إلى الشكل الأصلي. Okay, because the sentence was الجملة في الأصل كانت we played tennis. Sentence number 2, Irfan did not go to office. The same thing, we used did not, and we changed the verb into its base form using go, because the original sentence was الجملة الأصلية كانت عرفان went to office. Okay, look at this example. I met Ali yesterday. If I want to make it negative, how can we make it negative together? Yes, I did not, and we change this meet Ali. Okay, now we have the same passage that we filled into its blanks, but we are going to make all sentences negative in this time. Number 1, I did not go to England. I did not visit many interesting places such as the Waxy Museum. In the mornings, my friends and I did not walk in the streets of London. It did not rain a lot, and we did not see some beautiful rainbows. We did not spend a lot of money on buying gifts for our families. Here we have just some of the irregular verbs: buy, bought, can, could, choose, chose, come, came, find, found, eat, ate, drink, drank, swim, swam, run, ran, see, saw, meet, and met. If you notice that all of the second forms of these verbs do not have ed at the end. That's why we call them irregular verbs. Thank you very much for your careful listening, and see you in part 2. Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about part 2 of Unit 4, Lesson 4, which is question making in past simple tense. كيفية صنع السؤال في زمن الماضي البسيط. We'll start first reviewing the objectives of this lesson. سنبدأ باستعراض أهداف هذا الدرس. Number 1, how to write grammatically correct questions in the past simple tense. كيف نصوغ أسئلة صحيحة نحويا في زمن الماضي البسيط. And how to use proper WH words when making questions. كيف نستخدم أدوات الاستفهام الصحيحة عند صنع السؤال. As you can see here, we have what, where, why, how, and who. All of these are called WH words, and we use what to ask about things. نسأل عن الأشياء باستخدام what. نسأل عن المكان باستخدام where. نسأل عن السبب باستخدام why. ونسأل عن الكيفية أو الطريقة باستخدام how. ونسأل عن الشخص أو الفاعل خاصة إذا كان عاقلا باستخدام who. Now we have the rule, القاعدة, that we use or we adopt, التي نتبناها عند صنع سؤال. We have WH word is all the time at the beginning of information questions, followed by the auxiliary verb plus subject and verb 1 in its base form, and the complement if we have other elements, and at the end we have the question mark. Now let's have a look at one example. What did you buy from the supermarket? We notice here that we have the WH word is what, the auxiliary verb is did, the subject is you, the verb is buy, and this is complement, تتمة الجملة أو السؤال, and at the end we have question mark. Now we have a very important remark to make here. لدينا ملاحظة هامة جدا، وهي أن the auxiliary verb in past simple tense is always did. دائما يكون الفعل المساعد المستخدم في صنع السؤال أو حتى في النفي في الماضي البسيط هو did. والدليل we have did in this question, and in the last lesson we used did to make sentences negative. Now we are going to make questions to ask about the underlined words. Number 1, let's see the answer. ننظر إلى الإجابة أولا. He bought bread and cheese from the market yesterday. So we want to make a question asking about bread and cheese. نريد أن نصنع سؤالا نسأل فيه عن bread and cheese. Now what do you think bread and cheese are? في هذه الجملة هي عبارة عن شيء, right? And we said in the first slide that we use what to ask about things. So what, and then we use auxiliary. What did he, this is the subject, buy? Notice with me, انتبه معي, verb 1. what did he buy from the market yesterday? And do not forget the question mark. Now let's go to another one. They went to London last year. Notice that we want a question asking about to London, and London is a place. اسم لندن هي عاصمة أو مكان، وبالتالي we need to use where. Where, again the auxiliary, where did they go? This is verb 1 of went, last year. Okay, more examples. The semester started when. Here we want to put these words in the right order. نريد ترتيب هذه الكلمات بالشكل الصحيح لصنع سؤال. We start with the WH word. نبدأ بأداة الاستفهام when, and then the auxiliary when did. The semester is the subject. When did the semester start? Again, another one. We start with the WH word, why, and then the auxiliary verb, and then the subject, when did the boys, and then the verb come back late. Okay, I hope you've derived benefit from this lesson. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you in part 3. Bismillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Today we are going to wrap up unit 4 by talking about writing a biography, which means السيرة الذاتية. Reviewing the objectives of this lesson, we will see that the first objective is to know what a biography is, تعريف ما هي السيرة الذاتية, and what a biography includes وما تحتويه من معلومات, and how to write a short biography وكيف تكتب سيرة ذاتية قصيرة. First, we want to give a definition. What is a biography? ما هي السيرة الذاتية? It is a description of someone's life. إذن هي عبارة عن وصف لحياة شخص ما بما في ذلك ميلاده، عمله، تعليمه، العلاقات ووفاته وما إلى ذلك. And we, of course, we have some examples such as Thomas Edison, Nelson Mandela, and Bill Gates. Now we will move to a very short biography about a very important Egyptian poet, namely Mahmoud Sami al-Barudi. Let's read this biography and see how it includes the information that we mentioned. Mahmoud al-Barudi was born in Egypt in 1839. So this is birth, al-Milad. His family was very rich, and his father was a commander during the reign of Muhammad Ali. His father died when he was 7 years old, and his mother raised him and got teachers to teach him the Quran, Islamic law, history, and poetry. His interest in poetry was very strong. In 1850 he joined the military academy and graduated as an officer. Al-Barudi took part in wars in the Balkans and Crete. He became Minister of War and then Prime Minister. He died in 1904. So we started with birth, ended with death, and we had some information about his raising, tarbiyete, and his qualifications, تأهيله العلمي, and his education, and information like this. Now, you can write a biography by answering the questions on page 75 fully. بإمكانك كتابة سيرة ذاتية مشابهة لذلك فيما لو استطعت الإجابة عن الأسئلة الموجودة في صفحة 75 بشكل كامل. من هذه الأسئلة مثلا: Where was البارودي born? When was he born? And what did he become? If you make questions like this and you answer them about yourself, you can end up with a short biography. Hope you've benefited from this lesson. Thank you very much. Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. Hello everyone. Today we're going to start our last unit, which focuses on writing negative sentences in simple future. As we do usually, we're going to review the objectives of this lesson. Number one, we are going to let the student know the structure of the future simple tense. Two, we're going to let the student know when to use a future simple tense. And the last objective is to teach students how to negate sentences in the future simple tense. Now, let's start by reviewing the structure and use, how it is constructed, how it is formed, and how it is used. The simple future tense is the tense that is constructed by the use of the auxiliary will plus verb in its base form, or what we call verb 1. Now, with all pronouns, we use the same auxiliary verb, which is will plus verb 1. So it doesn't matter if you are talking about they, we, you, he, she, it, or I. We use the same auxiliary verb, which is will. Now, we use this tense to talk about a decision that we've just made now about the future. So if we are here now, then we are talking about a decision that we want to do in the future in this area. Here we have now some examples about this. I will travel to Greece this summer. She will study Spanish next month. They will go fishing. He will take a summer course. We will cook fish. Notice with me that in all these sentences we use the same auxiliary verb, although we have different pronouns. For example, here we have plural and here we have plural. Here we have singular and we use the same structure with all pronouns plus verb 1. To make simple future sentences negative, we use will plus not. So we only use not. So we only add not after will. Let's make these sentences negative. They will not study all night long. Next month he will not become 10 years old. We will eat in 10 minutes. It becomes we will not eat in 10 minutes. So by this way we have made all these sentences negative. Bismillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Today we are going to finish off, which talks about question making in future simple tense. As usual, we're going to start reviewing the learning objectives of the lesson. Number one is to let our students know how to write grammatically correct questions in the future simple tense. Two is to teach our students how to use the proper WH words when making questions, of course, in this tense. The rule reads as follows. We start with the WH word and then we have the auxiliary verb, which is usually will. Then we have the subject, the verb in its base form or in its verb in its first form. Here we have an example. What will she study in Canada? We can see that the WH word is what, the auxiliary verb is will, the subject is she, verb 1 is study, and in Canada is a complement. And of course we do not forget the question mark. Now the auxiliary verb in simple future tense is always will, so this is very important. Whatever pronouns you are using, we use will. Whether you have he, she, it, you, we, they, or even I, we use the same auxiliary verb, which is will. Now let's start to make questions to ask about the underlined words. Sentence number 1. He will come late because he is ill. If you want to ask about the reason for not being able to come early, we say why, because we use why to ask about reason. تستخدم لماذا للسؤال عن السبب. Why will he, the subject, come late? And question mark. Again, they will buy a new car next week. So we are asking about a new car, which is a thing, and when we ask about things we use what. So it becomes what will they buy next week? Okay, I think these examples are good examples. We have more examples now, and we are asked to put these words in the right order to make questions. Let's start with the first one. We start with the WH word, when, and then we use the auxiliary verb, when will, and then the subject, when will he, and then the verb 1, when will he see me. And this is of course not existent, okay, because it is going to be the answer. Number 2, we start with we will not tell anyone about the secret. And of course this is not a question, it is a statement, so we put a full stop. So in number 1 we have a question and we started with the WH word, but here this is a statement, it is a sentence. Hope you've all benefited from this lesson. Thank you very much for your careful listening.